Aloha, Satnam. In this video, we are going to talk about why we get burnt out, and it might surprise you why we get so exhausted. So, most people are actually, not exhausted because life is too hard or this or that. They're exhausted because, the nervous system is not feeling safe. You're in a constant state of fight or flight, of fear, of anxiety, of something that is dysregulating your nervous system. And the difficult part is that many people have become so accustomed to just this survival mode that it's so hard to even recognize. I know this has been true at different moments for me as well. We just think like I'm overthinking this, or I'm too sensitive, or I need to try harder, or I need to heal myself, I need to heal more, I need to fix myself, all these kinds of thoughts. But what is actually being experienced is a body and nervous system that's really forgotten what it feels like to feel safe. So one thing that I like to remind myself to whenever I need to, like when I want to step back into that sensation of safety, is like remembering a time whenever I felt really free. And you can just like sometimes my dreams remind me of this. Like I can ask when I'm going to bed at night, my dream state to help me out, to help me like remember like what does that feel like to not live in scarcity, but to like what does freedom feel like again. And one of the best chapters of my life was living in Bali, and just that sense of like being free on the motorbike, and just like that sense of freedom and autonomy and independence. It's really really beautiful moments. And at the same time, you know with like just kind of coming back to our topic, in modern life, it's going to pull us into the simulation of the notifications and of the pressure and of our comparisons and of our conflicts, our inner conflicts, and with people in our world, with uncertainty in the world, with emotional overwhelm, financial stresses, relationship tension. Like, there's so much noise that comes with this life. There's every category. Like, how do we keep this all in balance? And, over time, the body just begins to adapting to this stress as its normal state, as its baseline. But it doesn't have to be that way. So even in moments of rest, the nervous system can still remain in a braced kind of state. And that is why so many people cannot fully relax, cannot really sleep deeply or soundly, cannot meditate easily, cannot feel present in conversations, and are much more reactive, or just stressed and anxious, and just not able to feel peace consistently. And it has nothing to do with like failing in any type of way, or failing spiritually or whatever. Um, but it's more about the nervous system has just been conditioned for vigilance for a long time instead of safety. So that neural pathway is just going to take some time to change. It's not just in this lifetime, but it's also like ancestral. Like what came in with our family, with our parents. What did we inherit? And for better or for worse, that's what we signed up for, and that's what we got to deal with, and we got to deal with it. There's no way around it. And it's also why, like, we can't just temporarily like find escapes, because it's never going to resolve it. And there's a lot of ways that we can escape, right? Food, doom scrolling, movies, entertainment, sex, drugs, addictions, like all these kinds of things, right? And or maybe it's even like moving around all the time and never really like sitting with ourselves long enough to really resolve what is this about. We could travel somewhere beautiful. We could go to a retreat. We can have profound spiritual experiences, in these kinds of things. But if the nervous system itself does not learn safety, these things can feel very temporary, and the body is going to return to that same baseline of tension. And true healing really begins whenever the body just slowly, more and more, starts to learn, and not just learn, but believe. Belief is the key, that I am safe. I'm safe enough to soften. I'm safe enough to allow myself to feel. I'm safe enough to be right here, right now. But imagine if this was not like even something mental. Like, right, this is all like an affirmation, this is all mental. And when you're not there, it's like, how do I ever get there? How is that even possible? Like, it's a fleeting thing once in a while on a lucky day where I might feel that. But there is a way, and there are practices to like just feel that as a baseline without having to even think about it, without having to affirm it, because you can't change the mind with the mind. We've got to like address the body. We've got to address the emotions. We've got to address the mind. There's many layers to our being. This is why breath and stillness and meditation and mantra and prayer, gentle movement, getting into nature, having our inner child come out and be playful, um, all of these conscious practices to get us into presence are super, super powerful. Also, side note, sorry for my nose and I have a little bit of congestion, so forgive me if you pick up on that. Getting over a little bit of a head cold, little annual cleanse. Anyway, let's get back on track. So, all of these, mantra and prayer and movement and getting connected to your inner child and being in nature, these are not trends. These are ancient practices that have helped for a long time, for many like more years than we could ever count, because they have been proven to help restore the communication between the body, the heart, the mind, and the soul. And real peace is not achieved by escaping life. We can't escape it. We're meant here to go through a transformation, and we can either embrace that or not. And if we resist it, it's far worse than the discomfort of even embracing it. It's going to be uncomfortable no matter what. There's the news, right? and and slowly, with consistency and devotion, the body starts to really remember how to breathe again, and your heart begins to soften. It opens. The mind begins to get clearer, and peace just starts to get closer and closer to you. You just start to feel your own sacredness, your own divinity, and it doesn't feel like this spiritual idea or concept. It just starts becoming your natural state, more and more and more. And that's the hope and that's the prayer for all of us. And that's why I created a really simple practice that you can practice. The link is below. It's going to help you get calm. It's going to help your nervous system relax. It's going to reconnect you to your heart very subtly. You might feel a little difference. I hope you do. But it's only 3 minutes. And if you want to check it out, that's below. I hope you check it out and experience it for yourself. And of course, if you want to dive deeper, there's many, many ways within the Academy to dive into practices. But start there. Start with a 3-minute inner peace practice and see how you feel. And if you want to do it another time, try it for 5 minutes. And as you continue along, maybe you'll join us in a Kundalini yoga class sometime, and we'll see you inside. That would be so fun to get to know you and to practice with you. And I always make my classes specific to the students' needs. So I like to know what you're dealing with. I like to hear from you, and I like to personalize classes. So you can, within the academy, you can write to me, and or you can leave a comment below. Also, you can just let me know. Hey, this is what I'm dealing with. I'm going through a breakup. Going through a loss of this. I'm grieving that. I'm going through a transition here, and I'm really anxious. I'm like, I can't get over this, betrayal. I'm going through this depression. Like whatever it is, this is life. This is our challenges. These are our circumstances, and that's what the universe seems like it wants to experience. It wants to go through these hardships. It wants to go through these challenges. It wants to go through this contrast because it sets the stage for a journey for us to go on. And if we embrace that journey, it takes courage. And sometimes it can feel so hard to be courageous and step out of our shell because we're so sensitive or we're so shy or whatever the story is that is even beneath our awareness, subconscious, right? And then eventually, like I can't remember who says it. I think Tony Robbins said something like it. We only initiate change whenever something's just become too painful in our life to keep living in that same state. And that's really true. That is very true. So, if you're at that threshold where you just can't stand that level of discomfort anymore and you really want to embrace your personal, spiritual, and thus every other kind of transformation, because it all, once we start to transform from the inside out, everything around us starts to transform and change too, for the better. Our relationships, our family, everything. Trust me, I didn't talk to my family, different people in my family for different periods of time. I've really gone through so many waves of just putting this stuff into practice and, like, you know, open minded, I would say. Sometimes I actually, well, not everything. Sometimes I'm like, that's never going to heal. That relationship's never going to get, mended. And it's never going to get resolved. And with time, patience, and just one foot in front of the other, keep doing the practices, life got better, relationships got better, things got more and more harmonious. So healing and peace is definitely possible. And once you get a taste of that peace from, like, these practices and how efficient it is, it's like it doesn't have to be like this 90-minute long, super long yoga practice. And sometimes you come out of it not even like feeling great. You just, sometimes I always felt exhausted and depleted and just had to like chug so much water, and I was like out for the day because it was too intense. And these practices are not that level of intensity. They're very efficient at just like cleaning up the noise. And once the noise is cleaned up, what's underneath that is your true baseline, which is called Sat Chit Ananda. Which that's we're getting too far into it now, but that essentially means like beneath the noise of the mind is bliss, and these are practices that help us get there. So anyway, jumping ahead of myself, check out the links below for the inner peace practice. It's only 3 minutes. Give it a try. Let me know what you think. Let me know what your circumstances are, what you're dealing with in your life. And if you want to come join us for a class sometime, it would be so wonderful to see you in an online class. They're live and they're on demand. Let's start with that inner peace practice. And I'll see you very soon. Waheguru, Satnam, Aloha, Mahalo. Be blessed today and all days. See you soon. Bye.